activities, and even saintly activities, as we have it posted here on the work page. And that is, we saw how he's doing away with Avodah Zarah in the country meaning the Judean area, which he's ruling over. How he nullified many, many images that were public images. He destroyed the terrible, terrible image that his grandmother, the mother of his father, had built, Ma'acha. He burnt it in the Kidron Valley. And if we see one more thing, very special thing that he did, in verse 15, that's what we got up to yesterday, Vayaveit Kochei Aviv, in verse 15, Vekochei Beit Hashem Kesef Vezahav Vechelim. What does it mean that he brought in dedicated properties that belong first to his father? Maybe brought them in, and things that belong to the Beit HaMikdash. Well, where were they? Were they in hiding? Why were they in hiding? So, for us to really see the bigger picture, to see both political and religious activities that he's doing, we must open up Sefer Rabbi. Okay? And before we talk about the terrible situation of the civil war that we began reading about yesterday, let's see a bigger picture and let's trace through the things that are happening here. Chapter 14. You would like this? Yeah. Free of cost today. Chapter 14, I'm reading in Chronicles 2. Here it says that he did what's good and proper in the eyes of God. He removed the foreign altars. It does say that he removed the bamot, whereas in our chapter it says that he didn't have control over them. So that in itself is an issue to be examined. I don't know the answer right now. But it does say here, look how righteous he is. Vayishaber tamatzevot, vayigadat asherim. What does he do? He cuts down the Asherah trees that are used for idolatry. He breaks the matzevot, these pillars, the idolatrous pillars. Furthermore, he calls out to the fellow Jews in Judah, Vayomer liYudah lidrosh et Hashem Elokei avotechem. It's time to do tshuva. It's time to call out to God, to pray, do tshuva, lasot haTorah v'mitzvah, get back, improve our observance in Torah mitzvot. And then we're told, what does he do in the Judean area? Verse 4. And he removes these high places of sin and some chamanim are sun images in the areas of the cities of Judah. Beit Lechem, Hebron, Beit Shemesh, Kiryat Gat, and all these areas. Okay? Chronicles 2, chapter 14, Yudalit. And as a result that he's so into reinforcing Jewish activities, it says, Vatishkot hamamlacha lefanav. Okay? Meaning, people were wholesome. People accepted Asa. He's doing a good job. He's removing things. It seems that he's turning the situation around, unlike the 3 years of the ruling of his father Aviyam. Furthermore, in Pasuk 5, what does he do construction-wise? Urban renewal. Vayiven arei mitzuda biyuda. So here you see it. Mitzuda, the surrounding walls. I see what it says by you. Yeah. It says Vayiven. Vayiven arei mitzura. You're right. It does say that. Yeah. So they can sit down. Shalom. Ken. Welcome.
English copy of the.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Shimon. Rav Shimon, thank you. Okay. Welcome. We're studying Tanakh. That's the bestseller. We're studying Tanakh, the bestseller. Yes. We're studying the book of Kings. Kings 1, chapter 15. And now we're looking to see a bigger picture. So we're now examining the book of Chronicles, put together by Ezra the Sefer, the scribe, the beginning of temple period number 2. and he brings certain events and happenings that are not recorded in the Book of Kings, and that's what we're holding here. We're learning about 3 generations after King Solomon, Rechavam his son, Aviyah his grandson, and now Asa, who is a great-grandson that's ruling over Jerusalem and the Judean area. And now we're noticing some both spiritual, religious, and political activities that he's doing. And we're reading here in verse 5, and it says, Vayiven arei mitzura, you said. It's interesting. Apparently the resh switches with the dalid, but I think we're talking about he's strengthening fortified cities in Judah. Why? It says, Ki shakta aretz ve'inimo milchama b'shanim ha'ela. Now he doesn't have to worry about war, meaning we're not being attacked from the south by Egypt, and he has the chance to strengthen, from a security point of view, some cities in Judah. And fine, everything seems to be lovely. This we did not read about in the Book of Kings. Let's go on furthermore in verse 6. Vayomer liYudah nivnet arim ha'ela. He's talking to Judean leaders. Let's build these cities up. V'nasav choma hashvua. And let's surround them, with walls of migdalim, towers, dlatayim ubrichim, double doors and bolts. Why? Ki darashnu et Hashem. We're beseeching God. We're now at a time maybe of repentance. It seems to be here that there's a national awakening, at least in the Judean area. Darashnu vayanach lanu misaveh. Because there's some sort of tshuva movement. What's happening? God has allowed us to have sheket. Okay? We truly believe, and we see this throughout the books of Joshua, Shoftim, and Shmuel, that because of spiritual activities in the nation, it has an impact on geopolitical events. Here we see, this is what the king understands, that because we're coming closer to God, and therefore there's international peace around us. Okay? What point did I want to share with you? Now we're going to find out about a national threat. Before, what national threat? There could be a national threat from the outside by non-Jewish entity. But there can be also a national threat by fellow Jews. Let's see what Asa does in verse 7. Vayil Asa chayil nosei tina v'romach. He has a standing army with shields and spears. How many? Shlosh meot elef. Imagine these numbers. His standing army is 300,000. Now, but notice the next pasuk. Umi Binyamin, remember, who are allies. This is a time that unfortunately the house of David has been split. The kingdom is no longer one kingdom over greater Israel. Rather, Israel is split into 2 kingdoms. The house of David in Jerusalem and Judea going south. Parts of our northern neighbors in the Benjamin area. And in the Shomron, as we go further north, is the Israelite kingdom or the Ephraim kingdom. Here we're told that it has good representatives from Benjamin. Umi Binyamin Nosei Magem v'Dorchei Keshet. He has 280,000 warriors from Benjamin. That's a mighty army. What is clear to us is that there's unity between Judah and Benjamin, which we didn't discount before. But here, we're asking ourselves, why are we told about the standing army of Asa? Well, here's the reason. There's infiltration from Africa. Who's coming up from the south? In verse 8, Vaitzelem Zerach HaKushi. Like you said yesterday, Cush is the land of Ethiopia, which is just due south of Egypt. Okay? But they say, there are those that explain that this guy called Zerach the Kushi, although he has Ethiopian roots, he's actually the king over Egypt. He's ruling over Egypt. Egypt apparently is weak, and he's taken over. That's what some say. And we're told that his army is so great in number that all the numbers they say here is elef alafim, thousands upon thousands which we're talking about millions. In other words, if the standing army of Judah is more than 500,000 soldiers, they in Binyamin, the army from Ethiopia, or those ruling over Egypt, is even greater. Now, why are we reading this? Not only because it's written in the Tanakh, but just to give you, how does Asa react? What is his strategy? What does he do in order, well, in Las Vegas, they're betting that, Zerach HaKushi is going to win the war. Why? They have more armed forces than we have. So what does he do? In verse 9, Vayetze Asa lefanav, vayerchu milchama begeit tzfata l'maraisha. We're told where the war is. We're not going to get into the details now. It's less important right now, but look at the call of Asa. In verse 10, Vayikra Asa el Adonai Elohav vayomar. Adonai, ein imcha la'azor bein rav le'ein koach, ozreinu Adonai Eloheinu, ki alecha nish'anu, uveshimcha vanu alehamon hazeh, Adonai Eloheinu ata al yatzor imcha enosh. Excuse me. These are unbelievable words of faith, of security in God, that are almost unprecedented when we study the Tanakh. We do see similar words by Gidon in the book of Shoftim. He's basically saying, look, God, what's this army or the Chinese army that's 5 billion people? I don't know, whatever. Not for you, it's nothing, right? You have no matters to help us whether we're being fought by the few or by the many. And he's demanding helping out. In other words, what we see here is tremendous security, tremendous trust that he has in the God of Israel. And he's demanding that. So this is one very important, shall we call it, religious or spiritual / political event, that he's leading the army of Israel through words of great faith in Hashem. By the way, in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, we know that there is a job that when the Jewish people go out to war, there's a particular Kohen, that he is called Kohen Mashuach Milchama. He's anointed, I don't want to use the word clergy position because it's undermining. He's in a position where he's in front of the troops and he's lifting up their morale, lifting up their spirits. We have people today in our generation, okay, we have people in the rabbinate also, that are going out there where the collection of our forces are in and around the Gaza Strip outside, and they're there lifting up the spirits, okay? Justifying why we're going out to war. What is our moral purpose in the war? Why are we going out to the war? Why are we risking our lives? And that, of course, has to be supplied by people that understand who we are as a nation, what this country means for us, what is our history about, and what are our ambitions and aspirations to get to. So that's called the Kohen Mashuach Milchama. Here Asa, in the royal position, is leading the troops spiritually, and as a result, what great thing happens? In verse 11, we see it right away. Again, after this great prayer, Vayigof Hashem et HaKushim lifnei Asa v'lifnei Yehuda vayinusu HaKushim. Now I know it says in your Tanakh that who did the winning of the war here, basically? It's Hashem that struck the Ethiopians, okay? We have 3 sons in Gaza. And one came home for Thursday night until Sunday afternoon. And of course, my wife asked, miracles happening? So what is the answer? She says, Abba, Ima, all the time miracles are. That's what he says. He sees them all the time happening. We see. It's not just it's not just by chance that this event happened and this soldier was there. I mean, I read an event yesterday. One soldier went off of his group to pray mincha. It was about, sun was going down. We see by the way, that son, the middle son that came and says, Abba, the sunset in the Gaza Strip is the most gorgeous sunset he sees. It's just over the Mediterranean. It's the most beautiful sunset, he says. And the little clip that I read yesterday, a guy went to the side, it was sunset, he went to the pray mincha service, he prayed, and because he was at a different angle to all the rest of the soldiers, he saw a terrorist popping out of a shaft. So he screams out to his friends, and they open fire, and they kill him. In other words, his fellow soldiers, wherever they were standing, from the angle where they were standing, they wouldn't have seen it. And he had an RPG, what is it called, missile? What? He had his own shoulder launcher on him, and God forbid, who knows what could have been the results. So, in any event, so this is one main event that he has been so successful in. Skip, please, to the next chapter, and I want to share another great issue of Asa the king in verse 10 and on. Here we're told the following: Vayikavtzu Yerushalayim b'chodesh hashlishi. Remind me, which is the third month of our Hebrew months? Sivan. And what is special in the month of Sivan? Commonly called as well? Chag Matan Torah. So he gathers people in Yerushalayim on the third month. This happens to be what? Lishnat Chamesh Esrei L'Malchut Asa, in his 15th year of his kingdom. And he has a big gathering there. Vayizbechu Hashem bayamu. There's a big gathering of sacrifices, all from the shalal, the booty that they brought from the war. And we're told the numbers there, how much and so on. And the next verse in verse 12, Vayavo Babrit. He's making a covenant. He's reinforcing the connection between the nation of Israel and the God of Israel. For which purpose? Lidrosh et Hashem Elokei Avotam b'chol levavam uv'chol nafshem. We're working now on a higher level. We've come back from the war against our foes from the south. Interesting, the south. Egypt, Zerach, the Cushi from Ethiopia. There was apparently a miracle, great miracle that happened there on the military field. We're way outnumbered by them. God helped. As Ezra the scribe is writing these events, things that have happened hundreds of years before his time, but these events have been collected by key persons, not prophecy. And he's now putting this together here in the Book of Chronicles. And now he says, you know what? This is an ideal time to bring our nation to even a higher level. Exactly what's happening today. Today, because of the war and the great devotion and solidarity and unity that we're seeing that is unprecedented ever since the State of Israel has been built, we can imagine that now in the upcoming years, there are going to be more and more people that are saying, you know what? Maybe there's something more to it in Judaism. Maybe the values of the Jewish people is brought down in the Tanakh and in their holy books. You know, instead of me being traditional, maybe I would like to be keeping the Shabbat, or like to send my kids to schools to study this. As I've been telling you, a key supervisor that I'm friendly with gave me a statistic about 5 or 6 years ago. More than 50% of parents of first grade registered their children in religious schools in the State of Israel. This is 6 years ago. Ever since then, I would assume the stat is even rising. In other words, we're now in a period of time that people are looking for something above a beer and sandwich and 9 o'clock news on the television. They're looking for further values. Here we see that he's taking advantage, in a positive sense, of beseeching God and bringing the Jewish people to a higher level. And here you see, everyone, in verse 14, Vayishavu Hashem b'kol gadol b'tuah, people are accepting upon themselves all these matters. All this is a wonderful thing, just part of the political and spiritual things that we mentioned here regarding Asa. Now let's try to put some things together. I mentioned yesterday, Asa in Aramaic means to heal, to provide medicine. Okay? Asa in Aramaic, as the Talmud says. One of our great Tanakh teachers in our generation, Rabbi Yigal Ariel from the Golan, he writes in one of his books on Tanakh here in Sefer Melachim that the role or the job that Asa has taken, we believe that a name is an essence. We believe parents that make a decision to call the name of a baby, we believe the name has an impact on the soul of the person, and the name is an essence. Asa apparently has the ability to heal parts of the wounds of the nation that we've been suffering the last 2 generations. After the generation of King Solomon, we've been learning the last 2 weeks about his son that certainly went off of line, Rechavam, things didn't go well, and we learned also about bad things that happened to Aviyah, is his name, or Aviyam, as it's told to us. And right now, Asa seems to be in a very pivotal position to heal the mental, spiritual wounds of the nation and bring us back maybe to the great days of King David and the great days of King Solomon. Certainly we see that he's so different than his father. His father, Aviyam, was a very big hypocrite, was a person full of ga'ava, of self-pride, and we learned about the terrible civil war that was going on, yes, between Jews, and we saw the terrible number. How many people were killed in that great war? 500,000. We can't even digest that number, okay? The war between the Judean kingdom and the Israeli kingdom, Jews fighting Jews, was a terrible thing. That we saw. That happened in the generation before Asa. How do you stand up? How do you get up? How do you heal the wounds? You need someone who has a lot of spiritual power, a lot of self-confidence in the path of Torah, in the path of the nation of Israel. And therefore, he is not going in the method that his father was going on. His father did not want to accept that there can be two kingdoms simultaneously. He believed that he had to use force and to bring back greater Israel under one kingdom. So you see what happens when there's coercion. It ricochets back against you, and it was a bloodbath. 500,000 of Jews are killed. So in light of these events that have happened in this former generation, we only see a few things written in our chapter in the book of Kings. However, we've now gone through certain events, certain actions, both political and spiritual, that King Asa has done. And we see that he's using the service of God in a very positive way, very much against. By the way, who's still the king on the other side of not on the other side of the river? Yeravam. And their things, of course, are really, really, really bad. So what happens? What we're learning here is we're about to see that Asa also falls down. Meaning, after a few years of his kingdom, when Yeravam no longer is in the picture anymore, Yeravam, the king of the Shomron, the king of the Israelite kingdom, when he falls, Asa has expectations. We're going to see this in the upcoming psukim. His expectations are that I'm going to be able to create unity, one unified kingdom. I'm going to be able to bring how many tribes under the Shomron ruling? 10 tribes under one great umbrella, under one great ruling of the house of David. That's what he thought, that's what he wants, especially now that we're at a time where the prophecy that established two kingdoms, Achia, the prophet from Shiloh, he's no longer alive. We are now a few generations afterwards. Maybe there's really no reason for us as a nation to have two separate kingdoms. So that perhaps was his expectation, maybe his dream. However, if we go back to the book of Kings in chapter 15, we see, unfortunately, the fall of Asa. We see the fall of Asa. Okay?
Question.
1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I think I asked this question on a previous class. Did he speak to the Rabbi of his time?
No. We don't see any mentioning. No, I'm not going to say that. There's truth that in the book of Divrei Yamim.
Yes. Chapter 15.
Your question is well taken, Shlomo, and I'm looking for here.
And they fell.
Ken. So there is mentioning here in the book of Chronicles in chapter 15, there's a prophet called Oded HaNavi. And he's encouraged very much by Oded, the prophet, to continue his policy to wipe out idolatry in all of the land of Judah and Benjamin and from the cities. By the way, what we didn't bother reading is that he has captured or won the support of some of the Jews in the Ephraim area. Just to remind ourselves, when we leave Yerushalayim, and we're right now in the Benjamin area as we go north, right after the Benjamin area is the area of Ephraim. That area goes all the way in the Shomer until the city of Shechem. So what do we see? That he does capture some cities or towns of Ephraim stated in there. So to answer your question, yes, he has contact with the prophet. And the prophet is encouraging him to go forward and do away with as much idolatry as you can. At the same time, we're told that there are people that are sick and tired of Yeravam. They don't want the Shomron kingdom, and they're joining allegiance to Asa, the king of Judah. So these are part of the political and spiritual things that are happening. However, all this happens until we see the big failure. Okay? Asa fails to unite the nation under one kingdom. And now we have a new king in the Shomron. What is his name? Baasha. Verse 16, we'll read it. Umilchama ita bein Asa uvein Baasha melech Yisrael kol yemehem. Do you remember what we said today in the Parshat Shavua Shir regarding the word kol? Rov, a majority. So here we're told, again, there's inner strife, there's civil war, and there's war and strife going on most of the years that these two are together. So, what do we say in proper English? Asa maftit. He messed it up. He couldn't retain himself. He couldn't limit himself not to go to war against fellow Jews. And, it could have been a political, economic event that happened. But the Tanakh here is not the Wall Street Journal. And we don't want to understand the external reasons for what the strife was. There's no doubt that there's inner strife. There's a problem of character building, self-pride, arrogance involved. And when you cannot restrain yourself from your arrogance and you take things as an insult and your ego is bloated up, then we often see what happens with human beings making terrible mistakes. So this event of the civil war, if we would open up back to Divrei Amim in chapter 15, we would find out that this is happening in the 36th year. The 36th year of the division of the kingdom, which is the 16th year of Asa. 16 years of Asa's kingdom, there is this great civil war. Let's read on. Vayal Baasha melech Yisrael al Yehuda, vayiven et harama. Baasha, the kingdom from the Shomron, this Jewish kingdom, he built something which is called a Ramah. Now, we know, for those that learned the book of Samuel, hop, skip, and jump from here, we come to a great neighborhood of Yerushalayim called Ramot. Why is it called Ramot? Because historically, first of all, there's a neighborhood there in the book of Samuel where Samuel is born, bred, and grown up there and buried there, the burial site of Samuel the prophet, and that's called Ramah. So the biblical Tanakhic name of that area, just a few kilometers due north of here, is called Ramah. So when we came back, already in the early 1980s,